no matter what, I was an engineering student, so clearly there was a bunch of problem sets and work to do. But no matter what was going on in my life, I was going to be at a Michigan football game if they were playing in Ann Arbor. And then I said, well, coach, I just want to know who's got it better than us. And he was like, nobody. He like screams this out in this room. And everyone's like, what's going on? And he and I are having like this bro moment around Michigan football.
I know you're dialed in on Team 146, but I want to ask you about your experiences with Team 144 because you went to that national championship game.
That team dealt with challenges that no other team had to face. There was all of this swirl about filming and doing things that other people always have done. We just did it better. And when you do something better, people get really shitty about it sometimes. Just look at the tush push in the National Football League now. People are like, it must be illegal because I can't stop it. Well, no. They're just doing the same thing you did, just much, much better.
Everyone, welcome to another edition of The Lab, the leaders in best, presented by Champ Media. My name is Ben Lyons, and joining me today, the global growth officer for 72 and Sunny, Damian Journey, who is the biggest Michigan fan, biggest Michigan man I know. This dude bleeds maize and blue. He's got the helmet, the Fab Five book. He's got the Victorious newspaper on the back there because he was at the Natty in 2024. We'll get into it, but Damian, I really appreciate you taking some time. You're the perfect guy for this podcast, which is all about student athletes, this new era of NIL, how brands can work with these athletes off the field, off the court. And I would love for our audience to get to know you a little bit better over this podcast. So first of all, thank you for doing this.
Thanks, Ben.
Yeah, we talked about it in July, and here we are now making it happen.
I know, crazy, man. I appreciate more than you know, being able to sit with you and have a conversation about something we both love and care about so much.
The University of Michigan, the first time we met, it was, go blue, a fellow Michigan guy. All right, we love sports and marketing. Let's go. Like, kindred spirits here, man.
That's made in heaven.
So for our audience, take us back to your Michigan journey and your connection to the brand. We're going to call it the brand for the Block M for the rest of this podcast.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that, Ben. I'm from Flint, Michigan, born and raised. And when you're from Flint, you are either a fan of Michigan or Michigan State, period, full stop. My mom went to Michigan State, but my grandmother and family were all Michigan fans. And my grandfather's birthday is on January 1st. So my earliest memories would be for his birthday. Every year we'd get together with family and we'd gather around one television because that's all you really had in those days. And you'd watch Michigan play in the Rose Bowl because we went a lot in the 70s and 80s and early 90s. And I grew up thinking that Michigan always played on January 1st at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. And so it started before I even considered the idea of college. And once college became part of my vantage point, there was no question that Michigan was going to be one of my primary choices and frankly my first choice. And so I found myself in Ann Arbor starting in the fall of 95, and it's been a tremendous love affair ever since.
What do you remember about going to games as a student, and how has that changed now that you're a high-powered executive?
High-powered, that's a question mark. But what I remember about going as a student is it was my every Saturday activity. So no matter what, I was an engineering student, so clearly there was a bunch of problem sets and work to do. But no matter what was going on in my life, I was going to be at a Michigan football game if they were playing in Ann Arbor. Rain, shine, sleet, or snow. And I've literally sat in all of those. And I did that throughout my time as a Michigan student. But once I graduated, for many years after that, I stayed in the Midwest. And I would drive from Indiana 4.5 hours north to get to have tickets in the stadium and be in the stadium and watch the games well into my 20s. And so I feel like I've watched our program at every stage from pre-Biaka Batuka to the Biaka Batuka era, beating Ohio State in games we probably should have lost, but we didn't, to the national championship in '98 where I was there, and then all the way through 2024 where I was there again. So I feel like Michigan football and Michigan sports, basketball included, have just been a part of my very existence. And the brand extends beyond that. But the sports has always been part of what has been the connection point for, I think, most Michigan fans.
Something that's been really interesting in doing this podcast is talking to the student athletes about their passions off the field and off the court and wanting to work with brands. And you're someone who started as an engineer student, and now you're working in this world of advertising and marketing. Yeah. Walk us through what 72 and Sunny is, your role there, and how did you find that path? When did you make that pivot in your life?
Yeah, thanks for asking. 72 and Sunny is, I would say, global leader in strategy and creative services for brands big and small. Everything from United Airlines and the National Football League to most recently NASCAR or E-Trade, Zillow, like the list goes on. And we provide strategic and creative services for them, oftentimes materializing in commercials that you would see on TV or billboards you might see outside of O'Hare Airport or any other sort of media that you might be exposed to. Our job is to help brands figure out who their audience is, how best to communicate to them, and then deliver it in a way that's creative and interesting enough that Joe consumer actually pays attention and makes a decision as a result of that. And so my engineering days feel like long, long ago, but every day I use some of the elements of what I learned as an engineering student in Michigan in my day job, be it organizing and structuring situations to taking very large, complicated problems and breaking them down into their component parts and solving the parts, and that by so doing, solving the larger problem. The Michigan experience from an engineering perspective is ever present in what I do every single day.
How would you say that brands now are taking advantage of this NIL era? Because we talk a lot about how the student athletes are trying to take advantage of it and getting creative. But now that the floodgates have opened, so to speak, how do you see brands on a day-to-day really dive in authentically into the world of NIL?
Well, it is remarkable because, be it the Fab Five or Chris Webber, who's over my shoulder here, these are people who created tremendous value, not only for the University of Michigan as a physical entity, but for the brand, which is greater than the university itself in so many ways. You know it whether you've been to campus or not. And for all of time, these men and women weren't able to actually access any of the currency they created for us and as students and as alum. And now they can through NIL. So I'm very, very excited that they're able to access a bit of who they are as it relates to their student athlete careers. Brands are in a position where they have to figure it out. It's a new world for them. They were used to dealing with professional athletes that had lots of handlers and agents and a preset kind of orchestrated approach. And now every NIL athlete and every university has a bit of a different model for how they want to engage with brands. What brands are, though, recognizing is these college athletes, many of them they have followings that are as big as professional athletes. And so if they can find a student athlete that has a following that's authentic or a persona that's authentic to that brand can find a way to tap into that person and benefit from their name, image, and likeness and their particular fan base. And so I think it works well for both sides, but it requires both sides to be authentic to who they are. So if you're not a person that eats a bunch of burgers and fries, then it's kind of weird if you're talking about eating burgers and fries all day. But if in fact you are a person that does that, it comes through in the passion, the way you deliver the message and communicate. And I think brands and athletes alike can benefit mightily from finding those connection points.
Chances are, though, you're probably not eating burgers and fries if you are an athlete at the University of Michigan, unless you're on that offensive line and you're protecting 19 because he's big business.
Exactly. Well, the big boys eat different things. They don't get big by accident. You know what I mean?
But the idea of Michigan as a brand, you're right. It's that Block M. When you see somebody in the airport wearing the hat and you say "Go Blue," there's a connection. There's, you've been all over the world. You've been in different, business settings where Michigan comes up and people light up. What do you think it is about that brand? Because every college is going to say, "Oh, our brand is, this global thing. We got USC on the calendar. That's a big global brand. We play in a conference against Northwestern, and a lot of people are from Chicago and they know it." But what is it about the Block M and the Michigan brand that you think is unique?
Well, there's a couple things. I think it starts with academics in some ways. I tell students who are considering universities that Michigan's a great choice because you can't expect every 18-year-old to walk onto a campus and know exactly what they want to do for the rest of their lives.
You're an engineer guy who's now, out here making commercials and working with brands. Yeah,
exactly. And many people change their mind while on campus. One of the amazing hallmarks of Michigan is you can be an engineering student, change your mind. You go from a top 5 engineering, top 10 engineering program. You can walk over to the business school, choose to do that instead. You're also in a top 10 program. The same thing for medicine and dentistry and, education and public policy. You can graduate from Michigan and you graduated from a top 5, top 10 program, almost no matter what your degree is in. And I think that is one thing that builds a tremendous amount of pride because you're getting something of tangible value. The other thing is we have a long history. We've been successful in that and in sport for so long that there's a bunch of alum around the world. So your point is right. I'm in Singapore wearing my Michigan shirt or hat. I see another kid wearing a Michigan shirt or hat, Go Blue. We have no connection. Man, I even speak the same language, except we can both say Go Blue and recognize the Block M across the runway there or the terminal. And so we've done a great job in Michigan over the years of making the M stand for something. We've imbued meaning into the M, be it Go Blue or Leaders in Best or Hail to the Victors or Champions of the West. These are things that are endemic to the Block M. And when you wear it, it means something, both to you and people that wear it like you and people who don't know you. They know that you actually came to the party with some substance. Academically, you're probably a smart man or woman. And I think that that builds a tremendous amount of pride and a kinship that people who have walked through those halls or walked through that quad also have. And it just, we continue to feed it over the course of time through great academics and stellar athletics.
It's been amazing doing this show, getting to talk with the student athletes, and you realize you're right. That brand that, like you said, is global and is worldwide. There's something about these kids that they're tapping into and they're a part of now that they're just incredibly dynamic and well-spoken and thoughtful. And I've just been really impressed so far with the current student athletes that we've had on the show. What advice would you have to an athlete and a student at the University of Michigan right now in 2025 who's interested in exploring NIL opportunities or working with brands, or maybe isn't going to pursue their sport professionally once they leave Ann Arbor and wants to be a part of the workforce in another capacity? What advice would you have for them on, exploring their passions and interests off the field or off the court?
I would say you're part of the world's largest and best alumni network, and everybody with an M is willing to take your call. So don't be shy about reaching out. Like, there are people in any industry you can imagine that went to this school and have passion for it. And you as a student can lean into and access that if you so choose. So don't feel like you have to go it alone. You don't. You've got people like you that can already help out just by very virtue of the fact that you're a Michigan student or student athlete. We're here to help.
So you're about to get a stack of resumes now at 72 and Sunny after this podcast from every student athlete who wants to work in creative advertising and marketing.
That's right. And you know what? I'll answer. I'll respond. I may not be giving everybody a job, but I always have some words of encouragement, some advice, and maybe even a contact that I can help them with for sure.
All right, for our audience that's listening, a little backstory on Damian and I. We connected at an event called Lyons. It's the world's largest creative conference. It's in the south of France every summer. 72 and Sunny is an agency that has a huge presence out there, part of Stagwell's SportBeach, which is a 4-day activation where athletes, brands, creatives all come together and converge for 4 days of panels and meetings and events. But real business comes out of there. I always am impressed with the big press announcements 72 and Sunny makes on Wednesday or Thursday about some new client you guys have acquired or something. But you've been going to that event, I would imagine, for a long time. How have you seen sports and SportBeach really impact the industry and kind of change some of the conversations that are happening out there in France?
Yeah, I'll tell you that my first in-person Cannes Lion was in 2022. And at the time, there was very little sport represented. The NFL is our client. The NFL was speaking on a panel on Friday, I think it was, the last day of the conference. And there were tons of people, standing room only, for this event. It was 80 degrees outside. There was Russell Wilson and Cam Jordan on stage. And I couldn't believe how many people were there. And so a colleague of mine, one of the founders of 72 and Sunny, and I were walking back from that event. And I was like, sport is a thing. Why isn't it more present here? And in that moment, we hatched this idea for a SportBeach. And a year later is when you and I met for the first season, if you will, of SportBeach. And it has just taken off. And now you can't go to a beach without finding others trying to access athletes or talent related to sports, because sports brings energy and connection in a way very few other things do. Whether you love Michigan or hate Michigan, you have an opinion. Whether you love flag football or you love, women's volleyball or the like, it could be racing, it could be rock climbing. Almost everyone has a connection to sport. So when you put something that's culturally relevant at the center, it's very easy to attract attention and to get people to engage with it. And I think it's fair to say that the brands have benefited no more than the athletes that have attended. The athletes find it to be a remarkable opportunity for them to engage with brands in a really authentic way, without a lot of barriers, in a really casual and fun setting. And let us be clear, we actually play sport at SportBeach. So it's not just talks and conferences, it's actually hooping, and there's flag football, and there's pickleball and volleyball. It's actually going down. So
yeah, no, that's the part of it, though, that as I'm getting a little older scares me, Damian, because I know this Achilles is hanging on by a thread. And if it's going to go from playing pickup basketball at SportBeach with you and,
James Worthy,
Dwayne Wade and James Worthy or something like that.
No, there's no question after the first year, 2023, I definitely limped off the beach. I was in legitimate pain.
You got a little too into the pickleball. Yeah, I get it.
But I definitely caught the touchdown pass that was thrown by one of the greatest flag football quarterbacks of all time in Vanita. So it's worth going to if you get a chance.
It's funny you mentioned the playing of sports. There's some volleyball, I think, this year. I get a tap on my shoulder. I'm watching one of the panels. I get a tap. I'm wearing the Block M coach's hat, and a woman says, "Hey, I'm currently on the volleyball team at Michigan. My name's Allison Jacobs. Would love to connect." And I'm like, "Wow, you're here at SportBeach!" Like, and now she's been on some of the Champ Media shows already and stuff. And it just seeing like current student athletes who are in that type of environment is a reminder that these Michigan kids are just like a different class and a different kind of ilk.
Some would say they're the leaders and the best.
Some would say they are the leaders and best. Yeah. I know you're dialed in on Team 146, but I want to ask you about your experiences with Team 144, because you went to that national championship game. I think you went to the Rose Bowl as well.
I couldn't make the Rose Bowl.
We made the Natty.
I was at the Natty for sure. Well, Ben, it goes back a couple years before that, because again, I was a student at Michigan during the Lloyd Carr era, and I can remember, that year we were undefeated. We were playing Penn State in a really, really big game, and I told my friends, if we beat Penn State, I'm buying a ticket to Los Angeles and I'm going to go. we still had to play Ohio State. We had one more game and then Ohio State. We might not have made it. We made it. I go there. I'm in the national championship. I can't believe it. And we won in 98. So there was no way on earth. It would have taken a physical issue for me not to be in Houston for 2024's game. And so I was super fortunate and to be there physically watching us win a national championship. But I think what's more remarkable is what that team did to win it. In addition to being undefeated, beating everybody that came across their way, that team dealt with challenges that no other team had to face. There was all of this swirl about filming and doing things that other people always have done. We just did it better. And when you do something better, people get really shitty about it sometimes. Just look at the tush push in the National Football League now. People are like, it must be illegal because I can't stop it. Well, no. They're just doing the same thing you did, just much, much better. And so we did that. And we lost our coach in the process. And we had a major injury in the Ohio State game. And we endured and were relentless and were resilient. And everybody that walked onto the field found themselves facing a rabid Michigan football team that found a way to beat them. And so I think those men and the women associated with that program and that team are the high watermark for what it means to win in the modern era of football. It takes resilience, it takes commitment, it takes a whole lot of heart. And that team personifies all those things.
And it started with Coach, right? I mean, This is someone who is the ultimate Michigan man, who Colin Cowherd recently made an argument for is the greatest football coach of all time, which
it's a good argument, Colin.
I don't often agree with Colin, but I did on that one.
Colin was right.
I mean, we love Coach Jim Harbaugh. I'd run through a wall for that guy. I almost had the chance to meet him at Super Bowl out in Vegas. He was sitting at a table in the same restaurant, and I thought maybe he'd come over and say hello after the meal to some of the people who we were with because I knew that he knew them. So just in case he came over, I made sure to order a much healthier meal than I would have had at breakfast. And then he didn't come over, and I was left eating like all this gluten-free and salad and all this stuff. But I just couldn't bear the idea of Coach Harbaugh coming to our table and I'm eating like, a terrible bacon, egg, and cheese and pancakes or something. Even being in his presence just made me better,
Did you get a big giant thing of milk, like a huge jug?
I had a vitamin. I called it a steak. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, tell me a little bit about your encounter with Coach Harbaugh, which I believe is probably the same Super Bowl.
It was the same Super Bowl. So we had just won the national championship. I left the national championship and went to Vegas for a different meeting. So I was feeling myself in Vegas. So when we came back later that year, I was dripped in my Michigan swag because at this point I had my national championship Michigan swag to rock at the Super Bowl. And I kept telling everybody, like, we're the best football team in the world until there's an NFL champion, and there's not yet. So we're the best football team in the world.
I like it.
So as I'm banging my chest about this, I'm in this area with the NFL and some executives and dignitaries. And lo and behold, Jim Harbaugh's over there, and he's like holding court. There were people around him. He wasn't like walled off. So I was like, well, those people might know him because he's been on TV a lot, but they're not Michigan men, and I am. So I like walked up, I kind of like parted the Red Sea and was like, go blue, coach. And this a twinkle in his eye came about, and we started talking about football. And then I said, well, coach, I just want to know who's got it better than us. And he was like, nobody. He like screams this out in this room. And everyone's like, what's going on? And he and I are having like this bro moment around Michigan football as he's wearing his San Diego Chargers, LA Chargers hat. And my colleagues were just like, you Michigan people are something special. I was like, well, I mean, yeah, we are. So he was really gracious, kind, and true to form, not pretentious. He knew all the lines and had them prepared for when you drop them on him. It was great.
And I love how he's passed the baton to Coach Moore, who I think's done a terrific job. Obviously, going into Ohio last year, holding him to 1 passing yard in the fourth quarter, which is one of my favorite stats of all time. And like Harbaugh, dealing with a lot of noise around the program, had to sit out, of course, a couple of games this year. But I don't know, what are your thoughts on Coach Moore and the current team, 146?
I can't tell you how impressed I am with him. What is the most difficult thing to do is to follow a legend. If you don't believe me, just ask Kalen DeBoer down in Alabama. How's that going? It's tough to follow a legend. And when you win a national championship in Michigan, you are forever emblazoned as a legend. He walked in with that expectation on his shoulder. And although last season may not have gone perfectly, we beat Ohio State in a game that nobody expected us to win. And I think it speaks, again, to that resilience, that grit, that determination. And we've seen that showing up in this team 146 as well, where, hey, life is not going to be without some setbacks, but you view them as setbacks, not roadblocks. And I think that's the way we performed. So I've been really impressed with what he's brought to the team, his energy, his commitment, and he's a gritty dude. And that's what makes him a true Michigan man in so many ways.
In addition to the Ohio win last year, also beating Alabama in that bowl game was serious, because now you can say to all your friends like who go to Georgia and stuff, hey, I know you had a tough time this weekend, but don't forget, we beat them twice in a calendar year.
Yeah, it's like we start the year beating them and we make Nick Saban retire. Like, think about that. The greatest coach of all time is forced to retire because we beat him. And then his replacement, who we beat in the national championship, has to face us at the end of the year, and we beat him too with a team that shouldn't have beat him. And then we beat Ohio State. Like, all we do is win, as it turns out. And it really feels good to say that and not be able to have facts to support it.
It's been a really nice run in the program's history, and like you said, your knowledge and passion for it goes back to the '80s. You were there for the Lloyd Carr years, as was I. I was there for the John Navarre years, which were supposed to be the Drew Henson years, but were really the John Navarre years. So we know the program well, and so to see it back in the national conversation every year, in the playoff conversation every year. I think they're 20th now, but they're going to continue to climb the rankings and have a big game against USC in a couple weeks. Like, it's just really why do you think the success of the football team means so much to the university and to the brand as a whole?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. There's a connection to media here. I think part of the reason Michigan's football team is so important to the success of the brand is that as media was really coming of age, Michigan was a dominant football team. We were winning in games that mattered. We were playing in games that were really important on the national stage, like the game. By the 60s, it was the game was the thing to pay attention to through the Bo Schembechler and Woody Hayes era. And so media only grew from that point in time. And we have such a distinctive asset, not just with a giant block M, but also a winged helmet that really brought us into a different ecosystem. And then you add to it the Fab Five, right? These guys appear and change how basketball is played in college at a point in time when Michael Jordan was gaining prominence and media was focused on young, oftentimes Black athletes who were from the hip hop generation and that were performing and delivering on the court. Our brand has been at these major inflection points in media, which is the direct relationship to how people view the brand over the course of time. So it's marvelous to see us win in the beginning of the NIL area at kind of when you start moving into a football playoff dynamic, we show up and we actually are able to win a big one there. And frankly, some of the controversy around our team 144 helped to put the spotlight more on us. So when you win, you can't ignore the fact that the Michigan brand is an ever-present phenomenon in the world of sport and beyond that as well.
Honestly, man, I'm being serious here. It is so interesting to hear you talk about the Michigan brand in context of the advancement of media and technology in American culture, talking about television, cable television, the internet, social media, and now this NIL era. It's perfect timing for Champ Media, this new media company that is a collection of shows highlighting the life of the student athletes. And of course, now we got 19 under center, who is, the biggest NIL star ever and is making the most money and has the most attention. So the timing of Champ Media and Bryce Underwood and this new era of NIL, it just fuels, like you said, the growth and impact and influence of the Michigan brand. And to hear it from a person like yourself in the advertising and marketing world, it makes so much sense when you break it down like that. What are your thoughts on Bryce Underwood? And do you agree with me that he's one of the top 5 greatest athletes in the country right now in any sport, college or pro?
No, I think this guy is like nothing we've ever seen. He's only the 4th true freshman to ever start under center at Michigan. And I think he, without question, has a chance to be the best of the group. We have had great athletes in lots of positions in Michigan over the course of the years. I'm not sure we've had an athlete like this under center ever, who can both run and throw the ball. We had Diehard, who was like the fastest man we've ever seen as quarterback, but maybe he didn't have the ability to throw the ball down the field the way Bryce does. And so I think he is, with his physical gifts, he has the ability to stand out above the rest. But what really has impressed me is his poise and his intelligence as an athlete at such a young age. I think as that gets to be developed and honed, we're going to see something truly special. And I had the benefit of being in Michigan with this other great Michigan quarterback by the name of Tom Brady, and he's universally regarded as the best ever in the sport. I think Bryce has a chance to be another legend that comes from the great University of Michigan at the quarterback position. I'm excited to see it.
And from just a branding and marketing perspective, to have this star walk onto campus at 17, now he's 18, for brands. I mean, why would brands want to consider being in the Bryce Underwood business, you think?
Because he's a shooting star, and you can buy cheap, get in early. You can buy a little bit cheaper than if you wait until he's running the offense for pick your favorite NFL team. He's also extremely well spoken. His head's on straight. He is mature beyond his years, and all of those things are really, really good for marketing. He's a handsome dude. He's strong. All the reasons that he would be physically marketable on a screen, he checks the box. For all the things that will make him a question mark with what he might say, he has none of those question marks. That's another box that gets to be. So he's a low risk proposition and a really high reward proposition. That's made in heaven if you're a marketer.
Yeah, all right. So we've covered the football team. Now let's talk a little bit about what Dusty's got cooking with the men's basketball program, because they are, really, really poised to have a big season in the Big Ten and hopefully deep into March. You mentioned the Fab Five. Obviously, the women's program as well has grown in the last 10 years, and Naz Hillman, of course, playing well in the WNBA has helped. Probably the best player in Michigan's history as a woman on the basketball court. How does the basketball team's success once football is over impact the Michigan brand, you think?
Well, it's remarkable. I think one of the things that's interesting about football is everyone pays attention through January, and then at the end of February or middle of February when NFL Super Bowl concludes. But then right on the heels of that, you get March Madness. And if your team is in March Madness, either if you're really, really good, which means you're at the top of the board, top 2, 3, 4 seed, or if you're on the bubble, you're going to get a lot of airtime. And I think in many ways, it's good to be in either one of those positions, be either the very best, which means it's going to be a lot of media talked about your brand, or if you're a team that's like interesting enough to be on the bubble, everyone wants to know whether you're going to be seated or where. I think that just allows for more energy to be infused into the brand. Now, what's interesting to me is with the recent energy around women's basketball, now more and more eyeballs and attention are on that sport as well. So be it Caitlin Clark or Paige Beckers or Asia Wilson or Juju, like all these people have made it a really popular sport. And as Michigan's women's team begins to dominate and show up in those places, they'll have more eyeballs and more attention as well, which again just extends the period of time that people are talking about the Michigan brand. And then shortly after that, people are applying, getting their, they've gotten their admissions letters. They're showing up on campus as freshmen. And every time there's a new freshman class, there's more energy fed into this ecosystem. So it's a really virtuous cycle, and sports connects that cycle and keeps it revving faster.
So we got to get the Michigan brand into the 72 and Sunny universe somehow, huh?
I mean, can we get a call with Ward Connerly? I'm not Connerly, but Ward Manuel. Can we get him and I on the phone so we can have a discussion about how we can help this thing?
Can we get Coach Moore at SportBeach? Like, how do we figure that out?
Can we? I mean,
I feel like if anybody's going to do it, it's going to be the two of us.
I think we can get Harbaugh and Coach Moore.
Oh, come on,
and
man.
I think we can talk about this succession. We can talk about leadership. I have this dream of having a leadership seminar led by coaches of sports. And I think if we got Jim Harbaugh and we got Sharon.
Kim Barnes-Arico. Yep.
Pull him in.
Come on. Dusty.
Dusty.
I mean, just the idea of seeing Jim Harbaugh on the Quisette in the land of rosé and yachts in khaki pants would be phenomenal.
Drinking milk. It would be amazing.
Drinking milk. You and I are drinking rosé. He's sitting there with some milk on ice.
Pounding full oil, high octane milk too. Not 2%. He wants the good.
No, I joke around, but I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, we really should figure out how to get like a big Michigan presence, because that is a tremendous brand in the world of sports. Having a presence somehow at Cannes Lyons, which again, for our audience, is the world's biggest marketing, advertising, creative conference of the year. I think it only makes sense, Damien. I feel like you're the guy to connect the dots and make it happen.
I tell you, when I met Coach Harbaugh that day, we talked about a lot of things. We bumped chests and all the things I mentioned. But I did mention Sport Beach to him. And he was entering his first season as coach of the Chargers. And so he was like interested, but also recognizing that he's got like a whole new team to take over and work to be done. And it wasn't.
He's like, I'd love to go, but I'm living in my van in Huntington Beach.
Exactly. He's like, I can't. Now's not
I'm
the
living
right
in a
time.
camper on the side of the beach.
He's like, now not the right time. But I think now might be. This upcoming year might be the right time. And the same thing with Sharon. I know that there's been a history of Michigan teams and coaches doing a little bit of travel in the summertime. How nice would it be if we were able to get them to the south of France for Father's Day and learn from them?
Okay, just remember where this conversation started. When you see the maize and blue out in France, you guys will know where it all came from.
I'm in for it.
Last thing as we wrap up here, just again, advice for, not just the student athletes, but also just, young people who are following these student athletes who are interested in getting into the world of advertising and marketing and brands, but from a sports perspective, right? Because there's a lot of people who are in that world who couldn't tell you who Coach Moore is or, who Davis Warren is or any of that stuff. But just for diehard sports fans who I would imagine, are the folks watching our stuff here at Champ Media, how do you get into advertising and what do you love about it as a sports fan?
Yeah, well, what I love about it is you get a chance to tell stories. And it's harder to tell better stories than those that sports presents. Like there's no reality TV show like watching two teams play it out and final second something crazy happens. You go to overtime, you have a tie ball game in the NFL, like, yesterday, for example. These stories are rich. The stories around the humans are rich. So one, I would say, be creative. Like absolutely lean into your personal creativity and present that to people that can actually help you turn that creativity into some asset. And then also, I would say, be a storyteller. Humans love stories. Whether we read them or listen to them or watch them, we want to engage in good stories. And so I would say anybody that wants to be in the sports and is curious about marketing or advertising, find good stories to tell and find places and ways to tell them. And you will have a lot of opportunities in the industry. That's what we're looking for. Creative people.
Appreciate it, man. Appreciate the words of wisdom. You're absolutely right. The idea of, especially in sports, sometimes the 12th man on the team or the woman who's an alternate or, that can be just the ripest storytelling moments, and their journeys are just as captivating as the star players. So
there was a movie about a guy named Rudy. He was not a star at Notre Dame, and there was like a freaking movie about this kid, right? And so, like, find the stories and tell them. And I'll just say one other thing. Women's stories have not been told. We've been telling the story of male athletes for 100 years. Women athletes have been forgotten about, and that is a fertile ground for tremendous stories. So if I was talking to someone today, I'd say, listen, spend your time understanding women athletes at all levels, in all sports. Find the stories because they're right there. Someone just hasn't farmed them yet. Bring those to light, and I bet you'll have a wonderful opportunity to make hay.
He's Damian Journey. He's the Global Growth Officer for 72 and Sunny, the leaders and best when it comes to the world of marketing, advertising, branding, storytelling, all that good stuff. We appreciate having you on the show, taking some time, showing us your office with all your Michigan collectibles back there, and just an Emmy casually sitting there. Just like a nice paperweight there. Very cool.
Every so often, we don't work for awards, but it's good when you get one.
Well, lots more of those in your future, no doubt. And we got to have you back on when we have some of these athletes on. Would love to have you participate in the conversations around NIL and branding and all that stuff. So we'll put up the bat signal again soon, if you don't mind.
Sign me up for it. I just want to say one other thing before we go. Like, there's a special thing that Michigan does that other places, I'm sure, do, but I think we do it as good or better than others, which is mentorship and engaging people who have wisdom in ways that others don't. Like, over my shoulder, there's this book about Greg Harden, who was like the team psychologist. You could say he was the man in the head of our greatest athletes in the last 35 years. He recently passed away, but he was a mentor of mine. He was a mentor to hundreds of people, maybe thousands, including Michael Phelps and Desmond Howard and Tom Brady and Charles Woodson. These guys are better today because of his example and his words of encouragement. And I would just say to all of those out there that find someone to pour into. Give your wisdom and knowledge to someone younger than you that can benefit from it, and you'll find tremendous returns as a result.
I love it, man. That's again, wise words. I appreciate it. You're kind of like my mentor in this world of marketing and advertising, teaching me about the game. I appreciate it.
You're my media mentor. Look at this.
Right.
It's a fair trade, man. I appreciate you.
Damian Journey taking some time to hang out right here in the lab. As always, I'm your host, Ben Lyons, and we will see you in another episode of The Leaders and Best right here on Champ Media. Go Blue.
Go Blue.